Hello and welcome to another Transformers Tuesday. I'm your host, Played With, and today we're going to be reviewing Earthrise Arcee. Now, I know what you're thinking. Boy, it sure must feel nice to get an awesome Hasbro equivalent Black Series figure of Arcee. Finally, you think, I'm going to get a really awesome figure of Arcee. Not like anything we saw in G1 because she wasn't around at that time. And nothing so small as your movie series figures. I'm not really sure if you guys have picked this up yet, but I hate this fucking figure. This is one of the worst Transformers I have ever seen, and today we're going to dive into why. Oh, but before I do that, let me move my presidential election yard sign out of the way. I'm not really sure if any of you guys voted. I hope you did. It's really important, and it doesn't really matter which side you vote for, as long as you're educated about it and make sure that you do vote. I'm sure that's a message that Mr. Boots Riley here would really appreciate me passing along. Now, today in the arcade, we are looking at Arcee, and she comes with a little gun. The box art for it is pretty nice. This tiny little pistol is one of two accessories she comes with, her backpack and that. The backpack's kind of fun, except it's not. It's a fucking terrible engineering piece of shit, and I can barely stand this figure, despite the fact that I have been looking forward to something that is not a nicey figure, which is creepy as shit, and is basically made to masturbate on. I know you're listening to me, for all you fans out there. If you haven't seen the nicey figure, it comes with rubberized boobs for you to touch. Gross. Not my Transformers. I'm sorry, it's weird. I am 100% for people having intimate moments with themselves, but that's just a little too far out of my realm of toy expertise. Anyway, with this wonderful little lady, you can see she is every bit the robot mode that we needed. And that I'm not going to complain about. The posability here, especially with stiff, really fantastic joints on her ankles, her legs, her swiveling is fantastic. Everything's really tight and neat. And her posability in robot mode is absolutely cracking. But when we get her into vehicle mode, it is entirely underwhelming. It is a small figure, and she is essentially a shell former. Not something that I was really hoping for with this figure, especially when we got such wonderful things out of several of the other female figures that have come out. And it really goes to address the issue that female representation within Transformers is underwhelming over and over and over again. I mean, the fact that they have a geisha makeup Transformer to help with added representation rather than just having, I don't know, just anything that's not that. I don't know. There's something wrong with it, and I really wish Hasbro and Takara would fucking listen, because many people that I have talked to about Transformers who like Transformers don't really seem to mind that there are female Transformers. Sex never gets brought up, but the question becomes, does it ever need to? Because the underrepresentation they have for female Transformers is quite apparent in how many times figures like this, which are okay at best because of the engineering and transformations, get reprinted en masse across the board. There is an Elita 1 of this. There, I think, is going to be one more besides that of this. And I know you guys remember this figure, which was done up in 5 different versions. This is 2 figures in one. You guys recognize this guy out here. And I just wanted to bring this up to showcase that this figure also has quite a bit of posability, but there are 9 ports, 9 5mm ports on this figure. This was the Takara shot at this same figure that came out of the, what was it, Combiner Wars line. And this one doesn't attach into a combiner. It has many of the same features, basically the same design structure as those other figures. That all that entire wave was all that's just that one female transformation across 5 different versions of it. And with this, you can see she's mounted up for battle. She's got a ton of stuff going on. Besides her hands, there are 2 ports on her legs and nothing else. So not including the hands for this one, basically this one has 9 ports and 2 hands. This has 2 ports. Even this guy has 7. This guy has 5. What the hell? Why are there only 2 ports? It almost detracts from the entire armoring up siege line of having weaponizer figures. I mean, what's she gonna do? Wear the entire figure underneath her toes? Like, get the fuck out of here, man. Anyway, let's dive into the transformation. It's not lackluster. There are issues that I have with this, mainly because there are no considerations within the engineering for weaponizer, and there's also no considerations for anything beyond the regular transformation. When she's doing this without the backpack, you can see it's a pretty good looking figure. There's, a little bit of back kibble, not a big deal. And the main figure looks just absolutely fantastic. The head sculpt, the body, there's plenty of articulation and plenty of design elements in here that make it look great. You have the underside of her backpack able to transform around and turn into a little, I guess, jetpack or scooter, hoverboard maybe would be the word for it, but it doesn't look like that. Not only does it have nothing, I mean, there's tons of detail inside. You can see there that the detailing is extensive, but you could put 2 little 3mm blast effects on the back to make it look like she's scooting around, but this doesn't look like a hoverboard. This looks like the back half of her car that she's standing on in a meta sort of fashion show. Like, that's it. And if you're going to have this down here, how the hell are you going to put the weaponizers on her feet? Now, not really sure I understand the thinking behind this. I am deeply, gravely disappointed in this, and it is one of those figures that I am going to not play with nearly as much. It's unfortunate. I was really looking forward to this, and I cannot tell you how much I'm disappointed by this figure. If you have a collection that you are going to pose her next to all the other figures, or if you're going to be one of those people who plays with their sets like Fortress Maximus and establish shots all the way around where each Transformer figure on it is doing something in particular, this is a great model for you to pose and put in either one of those situations. But if you're here for the transformation like I am, nah, man, get the fuck out. You don't need this one. No, I don't know if you heard the clicking and cracking that was happening as I was putting 2 little pieces out of the way so that she could ride this thing. But I've looked through the instructions multiple times now just to confirm for this video whether or not there are deep editorial problems with the transformation, the engineering, and the art, and there are. Her backpack does not have components from it in the instructions that make it a hindrance and become a problem for them to transform out of the way. Now let's get into that. I'm going to pop her off her little hoverboard here, and I'm going to get this thing ready to go. Now there's a tab on the side here, this little button, and it doesn't really work great in terms of releasing, so you wind up pulling the thing out anyway. But here on the bottom we can see this little white piece, and this thing clicks into the back side of this. Now, I'm going to do that in just a second, but I want to show you that on the bottom here, this thing swivels around so that it can be part of the backpack and tab in. It flips back, and you can tuck that away if you need to. But basically her hoverboard is literally just this. It's just the back half of the car. She's got little almost clear plastic wheels on the bottom, and when you fold those up, these little tabs on the side need to flip out in order to be able to connect. Now we're not going to use that just yet, but we will have these up here, and you can hear those hard crunchy cracks. Those almost sound like they're going to give way to something because there's not a lot of tolerances here for how things are supposed to adjust. It is either all in one for the vehicle or all in one for the figure and nothing in between. So on the back side, we're going to lift this up, and that's all wrong. There's no tolerances back here to be able to flip these sections out. So what we're looking at is wanting to take these posts and flip them out, except they run into the shoulders. And you're supposed to actually have it further down, but you can't because the wheel is in the way. And that wheel isn't in the actual drawings for the transformation of the figure. Now, the tolerances for it would have been okay if that wheel hadn't been there, but I'm still clicking and cracking this thing into shape, trying to make sure that I don't snap the figure or bust little pieces off. And I just don't feel comfortable with it. Not in any way, shape, or form. And again, as far as a shell former goes, we're almost done with the entire transformation. Her head flips around, and you can almost guarantee that her head needing to flip around on such a small figure is a guarantee that they knew that this was going to be an oh man, I'm trying to think of a really great word for this. Underwhelming figure, because most of the time when the heads rotate around, it's in order to be able to not show off the face for the rest of the transformation. Now, I can think of a few examples where that might be the case. Your characters like Omega Supreme, where the head tucks away, those things are great. But in this case, this is literally being done because if you didn't, it would literally look like her with a shell on top. And that's some fucking bullshit. Now, there's another problem here. She has this little back piece right here, this hole, and then another tab right in there. You can see the little slot for it. And this tiny little tab is supposed to go in that slot, and it doesn't fit. And the way the construction works for the engineering of this, it basically has no tolerances to be able to get that together. So we slide this in here. We're going to slide the little white pieces together. And you can see on the underside that those pieces have little slots in here that we want to line up. And those go in fairly well. You can hear the click, it's pretty nice. And then if you want to release it, you hit the button and it should be able to more easily come out. That's okay. But now what we have to do is in one motion, you have to take this section, which folds up like this, plug it down by sliding down this post, which is also supposed to fit in her back simultaneously, as well as this tab, which is supposed to come up here and is supposed to slot into the arm that holds the shell on in the exact same motion as you fold this entire thing down, because there's no tolerances on the side in order to be able to plug that in. So now we're going to go back in here and we're going to move these guys forward, these little arms right here. And you can hear them. They do all right in terms of being able to move out. But all that is basically done all at once because you don't really have another option for it. There's not another way that this might fit in. And this is going to be violent. Because that tab, the forward tab, doesn't fit. Every time I feel like I'm going to break this thing in half. And that's not a feeling that I want on a regular for transforming. The side pieces don't necessarily fit in. The tabs don't exactly do well adjusting, so you have to line them up and make sure that they're working okay. And now that the tabs are in the back, she sits flush inside of it, but her arms just go down by her sides. Push the little elbows down to make sure that they've got a little giveaway. They don't tab into anything. There's nothing holding them there, so it's only as deep as you want to put it. But I basically have to push her hands all the way back into the recesses there to get them out of the way of the ankles that are going to be coming in. So we rotate our legs around at the ankles, and you want to make sure that it doesn't work on the thighs. It just works on the, not on the hips, but on the thighs. So from there, we're going to take her feet and fold them back, fold them up on both, and rotate them to the side. Now again, there's not really a lot of guidance here for what needs to happen. So what we're going to be doing is spreading them to the sides and then just clicking them into whatever it is that will hold them in. Now you may have to fiddle with the knees a little bit because the knees are double jointed here. And that will basically determine, you see that last click right there? That moved the hips down further so that the knees could actually fold underneath. Now there's a tab up here For this, you can see there's double tabs on sides of the knees, and that will be held in there. And that is it. It is 100% a shell former. That's the vehicle right there. And it's tiny. By comparison, I'm looking for a good example around here, but I don't seem to have one on hand. But basically, for the small Studio Series movie Transformer, she's almost just barely longer than that. And that's really disappointing. They could have done much more with this. I know Arcee is a bigger figure. I know that her vehicle is generally a bigger figure. I know that they went to great lengths to give a very, very good movie representation here for this figure. But this just isn't acceptable. I mean, I really wanted to pick up the Elita 1 copy of this, and after I got this home, I was like, no, there's no fucking way that I would buy that. This entire thing clitters and clatters its way into transforming, and all the tolerances are just unbelievably tight in a way that even playing with them isn't going to help. Now, there's a little bit of a difference here that you could do. You can flip the nose cone down if you want a little bit of a different look, and that's kind of neat. And what happens is, if you get the gun stored underneath, there's a little port that you can use. Again, not a 5mm port, so nothing else can go in it. But if the nose piece is down or if the nose piece is up, that can store easily away. Now that's it. We're done with this review. There's really not much else to say. There are no other 5mm ports on the outside of this that you can tab anything into. So no modifications. But there's plenty of little 3mm ports if you want to show her getting blown up. And if I was a little kid, that's probably what I would have done to this thing, is strap an M80 to it and see the pieces go flying. To be really honest, if you're a big Arcee fan, I'm sorry. I really am. I had no control over this one, but I don't have any control over any of them. Don't read into it. Anyway, well, that's going to be it for Arcee today. And if you're looking for this thing, it's probably going to be pretty easy to find. It looks great in vehicle mode. It looks great in robot mode. It just doesn't transform well. I mean, that's really what it's about. And if you're looking at this thing, it's built in a way that handling it just doesn't really meet the satisfactory needs that I have for really wanting to play with some stuff. And I think it's probably about time for me to go feed my cat, so I'm going to end there. Anyway, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. This is the first time I've really been disappointed this much by an action figure out of Takara. I'm really hoping that there's not much else coming our way like this, but I know there's at least one more named Elita 1. So anyway, peace out for now. Have a good rest of your day.